path through which the Buddha realized the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. When the Buddha left his family to seek liberation for all beings from suffering, he went to study with two renowned meditation teachers. The first teacher, Alara Kalamar, taught the Buddha about the four jhanas, the meditative absorptions of the form realm. The Buddha, being an exceptionally intelligent student, learned quickly. Before long, the teacher asked him to stay and teach because his understanding had equaled that of the teacher. However, the Buddha, still Prince Siddhartha Gautama at that time, declined and said that he had not yet achieved his goal. He then left this teacher to study with the second teacher, Udaka Ramaputa. This second teacher instructed the Buddha in the four formless jhanas, more subtle and harder to attain than the previous jhanas. Again, the Buddha proved to be an outstanding student, and his teacher asked him to stay and instruct the other disciples. Once more, the prince refused because, even after attaining the highest jhana, he still found suffering and defilements present when he emerged from meditation. Seeing that Udaka Ramaputa had nothing more to teach, the prince knew he had to seek the truth on his own. He parted ways with his 5 ascetic companions who chose to stay for the stability and assurance of a famous teacher. When the prince reached the Bodhi tree in what is now known as Bodh Gaya in northern India, he made a great resolution. He vowed to sit there without moving until he attained liberation, even if his flesh and bones would disintegrate. Thus he sat and used his meditative abilities to enter deep states of concentration, from the first jhana to the 8th and back again. While sitting, Mara, the tempter, came to entice him, but he overcame it. When his mind was completely pure, tranquil, and unwavering, he attained the deepest enlightenment. Upon emerging from his meditation, he realized that the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path were an internal reality fully understood. After these realizations, he knew he had become the Buddha, the fully enlightened one. In the joy of liberation, the Buddha felt gratitude towards the Bodhi tree that had sheltered him. He stayed there for a month, and then, at the urging of Brahma Sahampati, decided to spread his teachings. Initially, he feared that his teachings were too profound and difficult to understand, and that he might be disappointed by people's inability to grasp them. Eventually, he agreed to teach for the benefit of both humans and devas, heavenly beings. First, the Buddha thought of his teachers, but upon using his divine vision, he discovered that they had passed away. He then decided to teach his 5 former companions. Finding them near Benares, he walked the entire way as he did for the 45 years of his ministry. The Buddha never used animal-drawn carts, as he never wanted to cause suffering to any beings. Thus, one of the monastic rules is to avoid using animal-drawn vehicles. In those times, walking was his mode of travel. Every day the Buddha taught, which is why today we have such a vast legacy of his teachings with over 17,500 discourses. When he neared Benares, the 5 ascetics saw him approaching. They said to each other, "Look, Gautama is coming. He has abandoned his ascetic practices. He is no longer a monk. Look how healthy and clean he looks. Let us not greet him." But as the Buddha came closer, they couldn't hold to their resolve because of his dignified demeanor and radiant face. They greeted him respectfully. The Buddha told them, "I have become enlightened and will teach you my doctrine." Surprised, they asked, "But how do we know this is true? How can you prove it?" The Buddha replied, "You have known me for over 6 years. Have I ever deceived you in any way?" They said, "No." Then the Buddha said, "Listen to one of my teachings." The ascetics agreed, giving him a chance. They prepared a place for him to sit in the deer park at Isapatana near Benares and stayed with him for a week, taking turns to go for alms. Then the Buddha began to deliver his first sermon after enlightenment, the Dhammacakkappavattana Sutta, the discourse on turning the wheel of Dharma. The Buddha set the Dharma wheel in motion with this first sermon, and fortunately, it still turns today. Throughout history, there have been times of decline, such as in Sri Lanka, where there were no monks at all. The Dharma has often been threatened and opposed because it goes against human instincts, flowing against the current, against the stream. When the Buddha concluded the sermon, one of the 5 ascetics attained realization. The Buddha said, "Anatta Khandana sees, Anatta Khandana knows, seeing and knowing. Mere knowing is not enough. Seeing is the insight into the true nature of the mind that transforms one's entire perspective. Anatta Kondana became the first arahant and also the first monk of Buddhism. The Buddha is also called an arahant. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. He is both an arahant and a Buddha. The difference is that the Buddha discovered the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path by himself, without a teacher, while an arahant attains enlightenment through following the Buddha. When the Dharma is no longer present after many eons, another Buddha will arise to rediscover the same teachings of the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. The Buddha possesses the unique ability to teach the Dharma, a rare capacity. There are also Pacceka Buddhas, silent Buddhas, who attain enlightenment but do not have the ability to teach. When we read the scriptures, we are often struck by the Buddha's frequent repetition of certain words. Even though they sound melodious in Pali, the repetition may make us wonder why. However, it is not surprising. In speech, repetition is common. Moreover, the Buddha recognized the difficulty of grasping profound truths through hearing alone. Hence, he emphasized by repeating them. The Four Noble Truths. The Four Noble Truths begin with the truth of suffering. The 5 friends to whom the Buddha delivered his first sermon were ascetics, who had practiced severe austerities for 6 years. The Buddha had also engaged in such practices, but realized that self-mortification did not lead to enlightenment. Conversely, the life of indulgence he had lived as Prince Siddhartha in the palace also failed to bring happiness. The Buddha recognized that there was only one path, the middle way. Extremes are never beneficial. These ascetics understood the physical suffering involved in self-mortification, so the Buddha did not need to emphasize this aspect. They could grasp it easily. For us, it is not as simple. Even though we may experience physical pain and discomfort during meditation, once the session ends and we return home, the pain dissipates. Such temporary discomforts are bearable. What we may not realize is that the body itself is a source of suffering, not just in moments of distress, but inherently. The body itself is suffering. Caring for the body is suffering. Here we are not just talking about the suffering that comes from specific misfortunes. Misfortunes are one thing, but the reality of suffering is another. The Buddha said, birth is suffering, aging is suffering, decay is suffering, not getting what one wants is suffering. These are the significant sufferings of all beings, alongside the numerous other forms of suffering related to birth, aging, illness, and death. Clearly, when we are joyful and stable, we do not recognize the suffering within us. We might pity others and feel relieved that we are not in their situation, forgetting that suffering is always present within us. Even in moments of joy, we suffer because we cannot sustain our happiness. Pleasures disappear just when we wish to hold on to them. Each time we cling to them, they slip away, and we have to search for them again. Our bodies cannot sustain themselves without constant nourishment, cleansing, exercise, and medical care. So many treatments, glasses, teeth, hearing aids, supplements, cough medicine, shampoo, and more. We spend so much money just to keep our bodies functioning, let alone improving them. We cannot make our bodies younger, despite the efforts of many. We expend considerable energy, resources, and wealth just to maintain our bodies. Without this effort, the body deteriorates, becoming unusable. The fact that our bodies do not respond to our wishes to stay young, healthy, beautiful, and long-lived, but instead do the opposite, can also be considered suffering. The greatest suffering of the body is its constant demands, sometimes requiring us to spend our entire lives trying to satisfy them. All the wealth we accumulate, all the energy we expend, is primarily to keep our bodies safe and comfortable. We work hard for food, shelter, clothing, and medicine. Without the body, we would not have to toil so hard. Yet, many people spend even more time and money to make their bodies more comfortable and luxurious. This might be the greatest suffering of all, wasting one's life on such goals. But it is not just the body that suffers. The mind also suffers. The mind does not follow our commands. It does what it wants, rather than staying still as we wish. It constantly thinks about things that make us suffer. If that is not suffering, then what is? It is also deluded, which is another form of suffering. The mind jumps from one thing to another. Even the process of thinking is a form of suffering, even when thoughts are wise or skillful, as they often contain seeds of impurity. As long as we have to think about anything, we cannot truly have peace. Both the body and the mind are suffering. The Buddha said there is only one cause, one primary reason for our suffering, and that is craving, desire. There are three main types of craving from which all other desires stem: the desire to live, the desire to satisfy sensual pleasures, and the desire to rid oneself of this body. Because of these three desires, we are immersed in suffering, as they are beyond our reach. They are hard to achieve and do not bring true satisfaction. We are in a battle we cannot win, and that is suffering. We fight to remain forever, but no one continues to exist after their life ends. To achieve sensual pleasure, we must work just as hard, but it is futile, as worldly pleasures are temporary and fleeting. They cannot last. The third desire, the wish to rid ourselves of this body, is the opposite of the desire to live. This arises when life appears too bleak. But this is also hard to realize, as except for the enlightened ones, no one can exist without a body. The first two truths of the Four Noble Truths show that we are living lives without true meaning. No matter how noble our thoughts are, they will decay. If we see clearly that our desires are difficult to satisfy, we must find a way to escape the suffering that everyone endures. No one is exempt. Understanding this, we develop compassion for everyone, whether they are wicked, detestable, or ignorant. There is no escape, but there is a path to freedom. The path to freedom leads inward. If we contemplate, we will see that we cannot find anything outside ourselves. Most people seek solutions outside through better conditions, better people, fewer tasks, and less suffering. If we can see how futile this is, we will no longer seek externally. Instead, we will turn inward, gradually leading to the third truth, the cessation of suffering, called liberation. The Buddha did not explicitly explain what liberation is. He said what it is not. He knew that explaining it would be futile because until people experience liberation, they cannot understand it. But he could say what is not liberation so that at least people would not seek it in the wrong places. The following story illustrates this idea. Once, a fish and a turtle were friends. They had lived together in a pond for a long time. One day, the turtle decided to explore the land around the pond. The turtle saw many beautiful and strange things to tell his friend, the fish, about. The fish was intrigued and asked the turtle what the land was like. The turtle replied that it was beautiful. The fish wanted to know if everything on land was transparent, cool, shiny, smooth, slippery, and wet. When the turtle answered that the land had none of those qualities, the fish said, "Then the land must not be very good." The Noble Eightfold Path, the path leading to the cessation of suffering, to freedom and liberation, is the Four Noble Truths and the Noble Eightfold Path. Like the other teachings of the Buddha, the Noble Eightfold Path is based on three main parts: ethical conduct, sila, mental discipline, samadhi, and wisdom, panna. The Noble Eightfold Path should be regarded as a path with 8 interconnected aspects, all of which need to be practiced simultaneously rather than sequentially, as one might climb a ladder step by step. The Noble Eightfold Path can also be seen as a circular movement because it begins and ends with right view. Although right view is mentioned at the start, the culmination of following the Noble Eightfold Path must also result in right view. One right view. Right view is the first step because initially, we must clearly see that there is nothing more we can do in this life than to seek the path to liberate ourselves from suffering through spiritual principles. Thus, it is imperative to find the correct principles that help us understand what we have been doing wrong. Our obstacles are suffering, disappointment, anxiety, and a sense of incompleteness. There is a void in our hearts that we try to fill with one or more people, with thoughts, with work, or with hope. Ultimately, nothing fills it. When a principle can explain why we are troubled and show us how to eliminate our troubles, leading to peace, those principles must be very reliable. Moreover, the teachings must resonate with the experiences of sentient beings. The Buddha's Dharma can do that. Right view includes recognizing that all of us can genuinely cultivate ourselves towards liberation. Right view also means understanding karma, knowing that we alone are responsible for everything that happens to us, not blaming circumstances, other people, or anything outside ourselves. It means we are the masters of our karma, and only we can change our karma. Knowing that we can change is not enough, we must have the determination to change. These are the two correct views: understanding karma and the desire to change to escape suffering. It is not about changing the world we live in or the people around us, but changing ourselves. We cannot change the problem, but we can change our reaction to the problem. Additionally, we can gradually follow the entire Noble Eightfold Path to attain a right view of the self, which is no self. We need wisdom to practice spiritual principles. Without the wisdom to know what we need to do, we cannot practice meditation. Because of suffering, people have the opportunity to practice. Instead of always avoiding troubles, trying to push them out of our sight, or lamenting and feeling pain because of them, we should be grateful for them. They are our best teachers. Our only teacher, though unfortunately, not everyone learns from their teacher. There are many ways to deal with suffering. The first and most common way is to blame others. That is easy to do. Everyone to some extent acts like that, but it is a bit childish. The second way to deal with suffering and disappointment is to become depressed and wallow in suffering. The third way is to pity oneself, feeling like one is bearing the world's suffering. No one suffers as much as oneself, which is clearly not true. When we pity ourselves, we want others to suffer as we do. But it is futile. Acting that way only makes others uncomfortable and annoyed. Another way to deal with suffering is to grit our teeth, suppress our feelings, and pretend they do not exist. That also does not solve anything, because ignoring them does not resolve them. The fifth way is to look directly at suffering and say, "Oh, my old friend is here again. What will I learn this time?" That is right view. At that moment, we truly understand that the human realm is the best place for enlightenment. Suffering is our best teacher because it will grip us, immerse us in suffering until we learn something from it. Then, suffering will let us go. If we do not learn anything from that suffering, it will surely come back to us. For life is nothing more than a school for adults. If we do not pass a certain subject, we will stay there forever. Any lesson we miss, we will encounter it again. That is why we find ourselves repeatedly reacting the same way in similar circumstances. However, there will come a time when we realize that, and right view arises. I need to do something to change myself. I keep facing this problem over and over. Right view is the fundamental basis we must have to step onto the path. Initially, right view does not help us have a correct view of the self. That comes later. Fundamentally, right view relates to the first two truths of the Four Noble Truths. When we clearly see the truth that we are in a hopeless struggle if we keep demanding sensual pleasures and protecting our ego, we are on the path. That is when we step onto the path, and it is a wonderful moment. At that moment, we feel certain that we have found the path, and we are sure we will achieve the final result. It is just a matter of time. That feeling of joy is essential for meditation practice, and meditation is a prerequisite to walking the entire path. Each of us is a testament to the Buddha's teachings. We have suffering, desires, but we also have right view and can recognize our karma. We can change and learn from our past painful experiences. There are many ways to prove the Buddha's teachings if we observe carefully enough. That gives us confidence that we can reach the end of the Noble Eightfold Path. This confidence is essential for our practice. Confidence does not mean arrogance, it means independence. Each of us must find liberation for ourselves. The Buddha taught that we should not blindly follow his teachings, but should understand and experience them for ourselves. In the famous Kalama Sutta, the Buddha spoke about 10 reasons that prevent us from following the spiritual path. These can be applied to us today just as they were for the Kalama people back then. They are meaningful to us now as they were before. The Kalama people came to the Buddha when he visited the capital of Kesaputta, and they said to the Buddha, "Lord, many teachers have come to our city, each with teachings that make us believe. However, these teachers denounce and criticize each other. Now we are completely confused about whom to trust. We are very perplexed." The Buddha said, "Kalama people, it is right to have doubts and confusion." Then the Buddha taught them about the 5 precepts and asked them if they would be happy if they kept the 5 precepts and suffer if they broke them. The Kalama people agreed with the Buddha. Then the Buddha taught, "Never believe anything based on mere hearsay. nor on tradition, nor on rumor, nor on scripture, nor on surmise, nor on axiom, nor on specious reasoning, nor on bias towards a notion that has been pondered over, nor on another's seeming ability, nor on the consideration, the monk is our teacher. After hearing the Buddha's teachings, the Kalama people became his disciples. Those guidelines are still relevant today. Do not believe in something because it is traditional, or because everyone around us believes it, or because it is written in books. The Buddha said we should only believe after we have examined and recognized that it is beneficial and true. It is clear that we have found suffering within ourselves, and the more we turn inward to reflect, the more dissatisfaction we see. But when we no longer want to turn our personal suffering into joy only for ourselves, the conflict will disappear and suffering will pass. Accepting everything as it happens is also right view. The Brahmins, the priests in India at that time, did not like the Buddha because he threatened their livelihood. He taught that people did not need intermediaries between them and the divine to be happy, and offering incense to stone gods or giving flowers was useless. Since this was their way of making a living, while many Brahmins later became disciples of the Buddha, others harbored animosity towards him. One day, a Brahmin who hated the Buddha came to where the Buddha was teaching, walking back and forth in front of him. Then he used rude words to scold the Buddha. He accused the Buddha of teaching false doctrines, said the Buddha deserved to be banished, claimed the Buddha had broken up families because young men followed him to become monks, and that people should not support the Buddha. In short, he reviled the Buddha with all kinds of words. When the Brahmin finished his tirade, the Buddha, who had been sitting silently, said, "Brahmin, do you often have guests at your house?" The Brahmin replied, "Of course, I always have guests." The Buddha asked, "When you have guests, do you entertain them? Do you give them food and drink?" The Brahmin answered, of course, I give them food and drink." The Buddha continued, "So if they do not accept your kindness, if they refuse what you offer, to whom do those things belong?" The Brahmin said, "They are mine, they are mine." The Buddha said, "Exactly, Brahmin, when I do not accept what you offer, it remains yours." This is a story worth remembering. Any attack, anger, or threat belongs to the one who speaks those words. We do not have to accept them as ours. 2. Right thought. Right thought is the second part of the Noble Eightfold Path. Right thought is the result of right view. If there is wrong view, then right thought is impossible. Therefore, we must be careful with our thoughts. All thoughts are influenced by ego clinging. We see everything from the perspective of according to me, so even if our views are correct in worldly matters, in spiritual life, such conduct is not correct. However, we must start from what we have. We cannot wait for the day when our understanding improves. That day will never come if we do not begin to cultivate ourselves right now. Happiness and peace are not something we are born with. They are attained through persistent effort and practice. We must strive to always have right view, which leads to right thought. Right view and right thought are the wisdom parts of the Noble Eightfold Path. Before the Buddha's enlightenment, when he was still a bodhisattva, he constantly monitored all the activities of his mind, and he realized that when wrong views, anger, and desires arose in his mind, he was the one who suffered. But when he had thoughts of renunciation, compassion, and non-attachment, he was the one who benefited. From this, the Buddha trained his mind to the point where he could eradicate all wrong views. Right thought has 3 characteristics: renunciation, loving kindness, and non-attachment. We cannot have a mind of renunciation just by wishing for it or suppressing ourselves. Instead, we must use right view to think that desire only brings suffering. If we can realize this truth within ourselves, we will naturally let go of all arising desires, and we will do so joyfully, feeling light and comfortable when letting go of all afflictions and suffering. Desire always brings suffering because it only arises when we do not have what we want. It can be material or spiritual, it does not matter. But because it is something we do not have, we desire it, and thus we see this lack as suffering. When we do not get what we want, we become upset, desperate, and suffer. Clearly, we suffer because we do not get what we want. However, when we achieve what we desire, We are also troubled because from past experience we know that satisfaction and fulfillment cannot last. When we have it, we worry about how to keep it and maintain it. Worrying is suffering, and when we lose what we have, we also suffer. Trying to maintain something always brings tension and fear. For example, we fear losing loved ones, possessions, feelings, or favorable circumstances. Worrying about not getting what we desire is also suffering. When we realize this suffering within us, we can let it go. Attachment to people and things we do not want to be separated from causes us pain. There is nothing more painful than suffering until the day we ourselves must depart. If we do not see this truth, we cannot change. When we can give away something we cherish to someone else, we are truly practicing renunciation. If we can give joyfully, not gritting our teeth or closing our eyes because we do not want to see it go, we truly understand that clinging and attachment are suffering. But letting go of material things is not as important as letting go of our fixed views about the self, the world, and how those around us should live and behave, especially our loved ones. Attachment to possession and control is all suffering. Moreover, there is spiritual desire, such as the desire to be loved, to be a wife or mother, to be famous, to be appreciated. Any desire is suffering, hindering us from living happily and peacefully. Not accepting ourselves is also suffering. This is different from our effort to cultivate and gradually improve ourselves. The desire in our mind is the result of a feeling of lack, incompleteness, causing suffering. Only renunciation can end suffering. As long as there is desire, there is suffering. Within right thought lies the potential for renunciation, loving kindness, and non-attachment towards others, combined with the understanding of suffering's truth, guiding us to right thought. All four truths, four noble truths, intertwine as they penetrate deeply into our thoughts. If we understand correctly, we will act correctly. Our suffering is also the suffering of sentient beings, repeated over an unknown long period. For example, if we watch a bird, instead of admiring its beautiful feathers, its chirping, its ability to fly easily in the sky, going wherever it wants, let's look closer. The bird always looks around, turning its head right and left, fearing other animals might attack it or destroy its nest. At other times, for survival, it always has to search for food. And that is just one animal among many others. Observe the people around us, look at their faces. The Buddha advised us to know both the inner and outer worlds. That is mindfulness, awareness, and knowing. If we can see that all the people we interact with have suffering, we can infer without doubt that this is also true for all sentient beings everywhere. But if our mind does not fully believe this, it will be difficult to arouse great compassion. There will always be conflicting thoughts in our head. I do love her, but if only she didn't talk or act like that. Or I do pity her, but it's her fault she's in trouble. Such ways of thinking are unnecessary. We all suffer, but if we do not recognize this, our compassion and kindness will become intermittent. When everything is fine, we can endure. But when there is difficulty, we give up. Right thought means we must always be careful in our actions and skillful in our conduct. It cannot depend on our mental state or the actions of others. Right thought is the process of creating our karma when our consciousness is generating thoughts. Right view can be obtained through wisdom and mindfulness. It is the foundation of our thinking. Thoughts always arise with each action or reaction of ours. Karma, monks, I say, is intention, said the Buddha. That is how we create karma. And if we truly believe that good karma is essential for a healthy life, we must be careful with our thoughts. An interesting characteristic of thought is that it is like an iceberg. 1/3 is above water, but the other 2/3 are underwater. We can only see the part above. For example, when we give something, we think it is generosity, but do we really examine the intention behind that generosity? To understand ourselves, we must thoroughly explore our inner self. There are many corners in the human soul. We do not want to look at the truth because there are unpleasant things there. But that is because we are human, otherwise we would be in the heavenly realm. It is better to acknowledge our flaws. Only what is brought to light can be cleaned and improved. Dust under the mat will not be swept away unless we lift the mat. The Buddha compared our defilements to wet straw. If we store them in hidden places, they will rot. But if we bring them out to dry in the sun, they will dry and become usable. Let's look into the dark corners of our soul and carefully observe our intentions. The next 3 parts of the Noble Eightfold Path address ethical conduct, right speech, right action, and right livelihood. 3. Right speech. Speech is very important, and we must be mindful of our words. Just because we can use language does not mean we understand the art of conversation. The Buddha gave very profound advice about speech, which is worth remembering. If you know something is harmful and untrue, do not say it. If you know something is beneficial but untrue, do not say it. If you know something is beneficial and true, wait for the right time to say it. We must practice refraining from false speech. First, we need to think about the words we say, ensuring they are useful, truthful, and spoken at the right time. The right time is when the listener is calm and mindful. But most importantly, these words must come from our loving kindness. Only then should we speak. If there is even a hint of anger or aversion in us towards the listener, it will show in our words, making them ineffective. We often feel the need to tell others not to do certain things. When speaking, remember this advice to make our words more effective. Right speech is commonly understood as refraining from lying, gossiping, speaking harshly, or using divisive speech. The Buddha taught that speech can create enemies or friends, bring happiness to a family, or cause its breakdown. It is the root of deep friendship or enmity. The Buddha also said that right speech means not going to extremes, such as speaking too much or being overly silent, as both can be forms of lying. These behaviors stem from a desire to make ourselves seem more important. When Rahula, the Buddha's son, was 7 years old, the Buddha taught him about the importance of not lying, a lesson valuable for both children and adults. If it were not important for Rahula's education, the Buddha would not have mentioned it. The Buddha showed Rahula a small amount of water in a cup and asked, "Rahula, what do you see and hear?" The child replied, "I see a little water." The Buddha said, "The trust others have in a person who lies is as little as this." Then he poured out the water and said, "Now what do you see?" Rahula answered, "The cup is empty." The Buddha said, "Exactly. A person who lies is empty like this cup." Then he turned the cup upside down and said, "Rahula, what do you see now?" Rahula replied, "The cup is upside down." The Buddha said, "Right, the life of a liar is turned upside down like this." Lying is the first step to breaking all other precepts. People lie to protect themselves out of greed, to get more than they deserve, and sometimes out of anger to harm others. Speech relies on thought, so if we can control our thoughts, we can control our speech. We must be mindful of our thoughts, transforming them from impure to pure. If we cannot learn to restrain our speech, we will not have many friends. On the other hand, we must speak meaningfully. Idle chatter is also wrong speech. For example, talking just to talk about family, food, weather, or social niceties. Talking to pass the time. Unless we are mindful and aware of what we are saying, it is better to remain silent and reflect on our own mind. Right speech is one of the 38 blessings mentioned in the Great Blessings Discourse. It is a great blessing to speak kind, polite, meaningful, and truthful words. Two people can say the same thing with two different intentions, so their karmic results will be different. If we practice by observing our mind, we will gradually understand our intentions, but we cannot do this while speaking. The fourth precept of the 5 precepts, refraining from lying and false speech, must be reconsidered for its significance in our lives. If we truly choose to follow the Buddha's teachings, this precept must be prioritized. As everyone speaks all day, when we speak meaningful words, people will listen. When we speak kind words, others will be happy. When we speak polite words, we will have more friends. With truthful words, we will gain credibility. Without slander, we will be trusted. We can confide in others and share our difficulties or secrets. If we can become such a person, we will have many friends and a peaceful life, as we have nothing to hide. We will not worry about what we have said, how we said it, or whether what we said was true. Our speech will flow easily because it is backed by good intentions. The Buddha also spoke about teaching the Dharma. It must be precise, meaning we must know what we are thinking and feeling. This is very important. Anyone speaking the Dharma, even about their own meditation practice, must be precise. This means our mind must be clear, and then precise language can emerge. These are skills we can cultivate through mindfulness, not through lessons in eloquence. 4. Right action. Right action is also based on correct intention. If our intention is right, rooted in right view, then right action will follow. All actions generate karma for us because they are all the result of intention. Speech is based on intention, and so is action. All these generate karma, good, bad, or neutral, not only for the next life but also in the present moment. Karma and its results occur every moment. Unless we pay attention to the results, we will not know that they are related to what we have just said, thought, or done. With right action, we do not harm other living beings in any form, and we give up greed and hatred. We cannot suppress greed and hatred. They will manifest in one way or another. We need to have the mind to let them go through the practice of meditation. When we meditate, we must let go of all cravings, otherwise there will be no meditation. There will only be wandering thoughts, hopes, wishes, fears, and memories. If we do not let go of these states of mind, we will find it difficult to meditate. Meditation is about letting go of all the mind's distractions, self-concepts, and desires. Since we have not yet practiced letting go much, we find it challenging to sit in meditation, but gradually with practice, it will become easier. Trying to suppress them has no results, but letting go of the desire to think, remember, and plan will bring the best results. Letting go of desire is the only way to peace. And once we experience this, we will understand that letting go of desire in our daily life will bring us happiness. Right action can be practiced in all circumstances by anyone at any time, whether at home, at work, or in a place of practice. Wherever we are, whatever we are, we all must act. We can examine whether our actions are beneficial to others or ourselves. Even cooking or cleaning the house must be done with good intentions, not out of duty, request, or fear of others. The right reason to do it is because at a certain moment, it needs to be done with a purpose. By carefully observing and being mindful, we will gradually know our true intentions and perspectives in our actions. We will see the connection between body and mind without paying attention to external things. There will be no reluctance or resistance. We will do everything wholeheartedly. Only then will our actions bring results. People often think that work leaves no time for fun and entertainment. This is clearly a wrong view. It is entertainment that interrupts work. Whatever profession we are in, work is a means for us to feel useful and live with purpose. Work is a means to fully focus on the body, to know the conditions and origins of the body. Work is an opportunity to help, serve others, develop skills, and express love to others through service. There is no better means to purify the body and mind than through work. Not just working to earn a living or because others demand it, but doing everything with all our heart as a means to understand things more deeply. 5. Right livelihood. Right livelihood is one of the 3 aspects of ethical conduct. It means earning a living in a way that does not harm anyone. Each person must determine this for themselves. There are many ways of earning a living that can be considered right rather than wrong, but there are also livelihoods that are truly harmful. To evaluate, we can refer to the 5 precepts. If our livelihood violates one of these precepts, it is clearly wrong. Right livelihood is a crucial element in purification, because if we pursue a wrongful livelihood, we will become desensitized and bad habits will form. For example, a butcher in a slaughterhouse must numb all their emotions to continue with their job. If they do not, they will find it difficult to perform their work. Such a person becomes hardened, losing compassion for other beings. A livelihood that involves killing is very harmful. Lying, consuming intoxicants, stealing, all are dishonest means of making a living. Some people earn a living through wrongful sexual relations. Clearly, these livelihoods based on lust are not only harmful to the individual practicing them, but also cause suffering to others. They continue these actions by justifying and rationalizing their behavior. But that is their wrong view. While on the path, each step we take must be based on right view. 6. Right effort. Right effort and energy have a symbiotic relationship. With energy, we gain effort. Conversely, continuous effort increases energy. Energy fuels effort, and effort reciprocally fuels energy. Though effort might seem contrary to comfort, Prolonged meditation reveals that effort indeed brings about comfort. The Buddha taught the four supreme efforts as useful tools. These are called paramitas, perfections, because they are very useful and also very challenging to accomplish. Prevent unwholesome thoughts from arising if they have not yet arisen. Abandon them if they have already arisen. Cultivate wholesome thoughts if they have not yet arisen. Maintain and perfect them if they have already arisen. To achieve this, we must monitor our minds and discern between good and bad thoughts. That is why I encourage you to label your thoughts as they arise during meditation. Only by knowing what we are thinking can we take appropriate measures. We need to know whether our mind is occupied with unwholesome or wholesome thoughts. Such clear distinction enables us to practice the Buddha's teaching effectively. A lot of mindfulness is required to prevent unwholesome thoughts from arising, as it demands a deep awareness of underlying intentions. It is easier to deal with thoughts that have already arisen. Hence, we should start with these until we develop the ability to detect unwholesome intentions before they manifest, preventing them from arising altogether. In meditation, all thoughts are unhelpful because our aim is to meditate, not to think. Daily life, however, demands we rid ourselves of unwholesome thoughts. Trying to suppress them is unproductive. Instead, we should abandon them or replace them with wholesome thoughts. During meditation, we replace thoughts with focus on the meditation object. Our success in this endeavor reflects our practice of the four supreme efforts in daily life. Conversely, our daily practice of these efforts is reflected in our meditation. Unwholesome thoughts in daily life manifest as mental restlessness during meditation. When wholesome thoughts are nurtured and never stray, they bring peace and tranquility to the mind. If we remember nothing else from the Buddha's teachings, the four supreme efforts alone can suffice. While other teachings may inspire and uplift us, these four efforts directly guide us toward purification. Right view is necessary to recognize these tasks as essential, and diligent practice is required to accomplish them. Few people in this world are entirely free of unwholesome thoughts. Our world is full of turmoil and disorder because our minds are filled with such thoughts. It is not the skyscrapers, vehicles, or governments that shape our world, but our thinking process, which dictates whether there is war or peace, both internally and externally. Labeling our thoughts means knowing what we are thinking. This practice is best applied in meditation when we can clearly observe our mind's restlessness. Our thoughts can be unwholesome, wholesome, or neutral. Confused, restless, anxious, fearful, envious, or completely clouded. Without this awareness, we cannot introspect or understand why we feel or act the way we do. The four supreme efforts are fundamental on the path, unlike external adornments like flowers, candles, bells, or temples. Prevent unwholesome thoughts from arising if they have not yet arisen. Abandon them if they have already arisen. Cultivate wholesome thoughts if they have not yet arisen. Maintain and perfect them if they have already arisen. This process purifies our thoughts and consequently our speech and actions. When this happens, our vision becomes clearer, like a clean mirror reflecting pure images. Effort is necessary in everything we do, especially in meditation. Even with diligent practice, we might not see immediate results. This can dishearten the mind, diminishing initial enthusiasm. When the mind demands immediate results, it leads to attachment, craving, and suffering. We often expect results from our actions and become disappointed when outcomes do not meet expectations. Effort for the sake of effort without clinging to results is essential. Right effort is a good deed, regardless of the outcome. In meditation, even without immediate results, the wholesome intention itself is a good deed. Right effort inherently benefits us, though we often overlook this, focusing instead on material rewards. I've tried so hard but still can't concentrate, or I've loved my children so much but they are ungrateful, or I've taken care of my aunt for so long yet she's never kind to me. This is a flawed perspective. The effort itself is the merit, it is the result. Regardless of what others say or the outcome, this is secondary. Sometimes we achieve concentration. Sometimes others appreciate our efforts, but these do not determine the effectiveness of our efforts. If we do not change our perspective, we remain dependent on results. Thus, our effort fluctuates with the outcomes. If effort is inconsistent, it is ineffective. Right effort must be steadfast. 7. Right mindfulness. Next is right mindfulness. If you have practiced mindfulness, you will understand what it means. When you place your foot on the ground and are aware only of that action, that is mindfulness. When you raise chopsticks to your mouth and are aware only of that action, that is mindfulness. This is very different from our daily actions, and if you do not recognize this difference, you have not truly practiced mindfulness. When you are completely mindful, you do not notice anything else. This is single-pointed focus. It helps you forget your troubles because you cannot think of two things simultaneously. This focal point, when applied to meditation, gradually leads you to concentration. In daily life, the practice of mindfulness helps you forget your troubles because they no longer occupy your mind. And in meditation, it helps you achieve concentration. Mindfulness can also help purify yourself. When you are fully aware of what you are doing, saying, or thinking, you become careful not to let your body, speech, and mind be controlled by instinctive, defiled actions. In this way, you achieve purification. Sometimes there's a misunderstanding about the term mindfulness. Mindfulness means always being aware. How can you rectify unwholesome actions if you are not aware of them? There are 4 foundations of mindfulness. Mindfulness of the body, such as actions, movements, the 32 parts, postures, and physical appearance. Mindfulness of feelings, such as mental and physical sensations. Mindfulness of the mind, such as the process of thinking, knowing you are thinking, knowing the mind is active, knowing there are thoughts, and knowing the nature of thoughts. And finally, mindfulness of the objects of the mind, knowing whether a thought is defiled or pure. Traditionally, mindfulness of the objects of the mind involved examining whether parts of the 5 aggregates, the 7 factors of enlightenment, the Noble Eightfold Path, or the 6 sense bases were arising. But in practice, in daily application, this is too cumbersome. Most of us do not remember all the details to examine. Simply knowing whether a thought is pure or impure is sufficient. Also, it is difficult to practice all 4 types of mindfulness simultaneously. You can choose one during meditation. You might focus on the in and out breath or practice walking meditation, both of which involve contemplation of the body. Or you might focus on feelings caused by mental and physical processes. If you notice you are troubled by thoughts, that results from mindfulness of the mind. When you label thoughts and recognize them as love, hate, compassion, or anger, you are practicing mindfulness of the objects of the mind. Ultimately, in meditation, you choose where to place your focus. In daily life, it is different. You must focus on what is appropriate at the moment. For example, when crossing a busy street, focusing solely on your steps might not be the best way to stay safe. You need to pay attention to the traffic. In this case, mindfulness means being aware of what is happening around you. Or when talking on the phone, you cannot focus only on the receiver. You need to pay attention to your thoughts and the resulting conversation. Mindfulness involves focusing on what is reasonable at that moment. Mindfulness is a spiritual factor that can and should be practiced every waking moment. There are 24 hours in a day, and if all goes well, you might meditate for an hour in the morning and an hour in the evening. You might sleep for 6 or 7 hours, leaving about 15 hours each day. If you do not remember to practice mindfulness during those 15 hours, you might as well forget about meditation and practicing the Buddha's teachings. If you do that, you are just good at talking and not practicing. When you continuously practice mindfulness, it becomes a habit, making your life less troublesome because mindfulness helps you avoid mistakes and missteps. Mindfulness is like the brakes on a car. Driving without brakes is incredibly dangerous. Living without mindfulness is equally perilous. You can easily collide with others, harming yourself and them. Practicing mindfulness does not mean becoming passive or reacting according to others' wishes. That is not mindfulness. That is yielding. Mindfulness means knowing clearly what you are thinking, feeling, and doing. Knowing this, you become more attentive to your reactions. You do not act according to others' desires, but focus on purifying yourself. Right effort, the 4 supreme efforts, can only succeed when accompanied by mindfulness. Moreover, all parts of the Noble Eightfold Path require the support of mindfulness. Mindfulness goes hand in hand with clear comprehension. Mindfulness is the knowing element, thoroughly illustrated in a Japanese haiku. Old pond, frog jumps in, splash. When a frog jumps into an old pond, many things happen. The water ripples, the frog disappears, and sunlight may shimmer on the pond's surface. All these are additional factors. Mindfulness focuses on the core, the essential point, which is the splash. That is all. That is the focal point. There is only knowing, with its companion of clear comprehension. Clear comprehension helps us know what is happening so we can use that knowledge. Clear comprehension has 4 parts: knowing the purpose, knowing whether the means are skillful, knowing whether the purpose and means align with the Dhamma, and knowing whether the purpose has been achieved. When we say there is no purpose, we have neglected mindfulness and clear comprehension. When we say there is a purpose but cannot articulate it, we lack skillful means. Clear comprehension helps us discern whether our body, speech, and mind align with the true Dhamma. If we do not achieve the desired result, it is clear we have not used skillful means. Mindfulness in speech and action requires clear comprehension, knowing the purpose, skillful means, adherence to the Dhamma. Living mindfully changes how we focus. We know what is happening but are not concerned with it. When anger arises, we know it is arising, but we do not need to become angry. That is a wonderful skill. When depression arises, we know it is arising, but we do not need to become depressed or despairing. We simply know the arising and passing away of all mental states. Mindfulness is for everyone. Anyone can use it for survival. But since struggling for survival is futile, it is better to use it for liberation and enlightenment. Mindfulness is a skillful means, and clear comprehension is the wisdom that helps us discern. Mindfulness does not judge, but clear comprehension includes discernment, allowing us to change direction if necessary. 8. Right concentration. When delving deeply into meditation, we can achieve right concentration, which the Buddha frequently mentioned in his teachings as a path and a means, rather than an end goal. Right concentration fundamentally requires the other branches of the Noble Eightfold Path. Without moral conduct, sila, right thinking, right view, and right effort, right concentration cannot be attained. Thus, right concentration is mentioned last. It is also the starting point for transforming an ordinary person into an enlightened one. Right view is placed first in the Noble Eightfold Path because without it, nothing else can occur. Right concentration is last because it requires all the other factors to form and provides the means to attain freedom. When right concentration is achieved and one has made efforts to reflect inwardly, right view becomes clearer. This is the right view of liberation. Ultimately, we complete the circle and return to the right view of self, which is non-self, anatta. We cannot find non-self. We cannot find what is not present. Therefore, we must always question and examine what we believe to be the self. We believe in the body, feelings, thoughts, and mental formations as the self. We need to re-examine all these constituents that are considered self. If we do not clearly understand the self we hold on to and do not control it, we cannot let it go. If I do not know where my watch is, if I do not have it in my hand, I cannot discard it. I can only do this when I know exactly what and where it is. If I look for the watch and cannot find it, I cannot do anything with it. The same applies to our self. The search is about the self. What is this body? Is it truly me or mine? If it is a corpse, is it still me? Are these feelings really mine? Why do they come when I do not wish for them? Why do I have thoughts that only cause me suffering? Who is suffering? Who is me? Is it the me of yesterday, today, or tomorrow? These questions continually seek to uncover what and where the self is. Ultimately, when I find it, I can let go of the illusion of it. In summary, to understand non-self, we must start with the self. When it becomes increasingly clear that it is merely a mistaken perception of self, it also becomes evident that our thinking process can change. All the factors discussed here are merely paths and means to lessen the attachment to the self, making it smaller. Concentration is an essential factor because when the mind is completely concentrated, there are no thoughts like, I am, I can, I will, I want, I do not want. When we meditate regularly, the self often diminishes, allowing us to see things more clearly. Conversely, if we do not cultivate concentration or mindfulness, our attachment to the self remains unchanged. The Noble Eightfold Path progresses from a relatively correct view to into the absolute right view, eventually transforming a person into the embodiment of the Noble Eightfold Path. At that point, there is no need to practice the path consciously or strive to remember it. We do not need to labor over each step, as the Noble Eightfold Path has become our natural instinct. The Arahants always possess right view and right thinking. They do not engage in wrong speech, incorrect actions, or improper livelihood. Instead, they are always right in effort, mindfulness, and concentration. For us, it is a gradual process. Only through practice can we perfect the Noble Eightfold Path.
30 Stories of the Truth of Zen, a journey back to the true self and enlightenment. Welcome back, everyone, to Mind Podcast. Reading and enjoying these small classic Zen stories from the forest will help you grasp the unique charm of Zen thought, allowing you to naturally and comfortably experience its essence. Though Zen is profound, its form is remarkably simple and lively, adhering to the principle of no need for words, yet penetrating the heart. Each story in this book fully embodies the wisdom of Zen masters and Buddhist scriptures, containing countless genuine meanings for life. It is truly a valuable book for awakening to life's truths. 1. Reflection leads to awakening. When Zen master Dongshan Lianjia attained enlightenment under Zen master Nanyue Puiyuan, it happened to be the memorial day of Zen master Yunyan's passing, Dongshan's own mentor. So, Dongshan held a memorial service. A student asked, "What enlightenment did you gain from your late master Yunyan?" Dongshan replied, "Although I was with Yunyan, I never received any specific instructions." The student, puzzled, asked, "If you weren't taught, why do you still honor him with a memorial service?" Dongshan said, "How could I betray my teacher?" The student pressed on, "I still don't understand. You attained enlightenment under Zen master Nanyue, so why hold a memorial for Yunyan?" Dongshan calmly replied, "I don't revere him for his Buddhist teachings, but for what he didn't say. That alone surpasses what even parents can offer." The student continued, "So, by conducting the memorial service, you acknowledge Yunyan's Zen style?" Dongshan replied, "Half of it, but not the other half." The student asked, "Why not fully acknowledge it?" Dongshan responded, "If I fully acknowledged it, I would dishonor him." After Yunyan's passing, Dongshan achieved enlightenment by seeing his own reflection in water. His enlightenment verse goes, "Relying on others to find myself, vague and distant we seemed. Now, walking alone, everywhere I find my true dwelling. This reflection is indeed myself, but now I am not this reflection." To truly understand, one must harmonize with thusness. Even though Dongshan's enlightenment came after his teacher's passing, he never forgot his teacher's unspoken guidance. This gratitude for what was not spoken led him to hold the memorial service and achieve his awakening by reflecting on himself. Affirming oneself, Zen master Danchu Huilang initially studied under Zen master Mazu. When Mazu saw him, he asked, "What are you seeking?" Huilang replied, "I seek the Buddha's wisdom." Mazu said, "The Buddha transcends wisdom. If you still have wisdom, it's demonic." Huilang, upon hearing this, bowed respectfully. Mazu then asked, "Where do you come from?" Huilang answered, "From Nanyue," indicating that he had previously studied under Zen master Shito Shichian in Nanyue, Hunan. At that time, Mazu was well known for his Zen style in Jiangxi, while Shito was a prominent figure in Hunan. Thus, students would either seek Zen teachings from Mazu in Jiangxi or Shito in Hunan. This led to the saying, Jianghu, rivers and lakes, symbolizing the movement between these two influential places. Mazu bluntly said, "You come from Nanyue, betraying the compassion of Master Shito. You should quickly return, for wandering elsewhere won't suit you." Huilang then returned to Shito and asked, "What is Buddha?" Shito responded, "You do not possess Buddha nature." Confused, Huilang asked, "Even insects have Buddha nature, why don't I?" "Because you're not an insect," Shito replied. "Does that mean I'm lesser than an insect?" Huilang questioned. "Because you don't have the endurance," Shito answered. Finally, Huilang achieved enlightenment. Buddhist practitioners must affirm themselves and recognize the importance of their place of practice. There are those who do not understand themselves and do not trust their place of return, blindly wandering until they finally realize, "I wore out iron shoes in search, only to find it right where I stood." Zen wisdom. To live and interact with the world, you must first understand yourself. Be loyal to yourself, dedicated to your work and your position, and do not wander aimlessly, simply because you have not yet been recognized. 3 Clouds and water flow with conditions. Zen Master Fayan Wenyi, after studying Zen under Master Qinghui, struggled to achieve enlightenment. Unable to find the path, he bid farewell to Qinghui and began traveling far and wide. During one of his journeys, a heavy rain forced him to seek shelter at a temple dedicated to Kshitigarbha Bodhisattva. The temple's guest master asked, "Where are you headed, Zen Master?" Fayan replied, "I have no particular destination, I'm just wandering." The guest master asked, "What are your thoughts on traveling without direction?" Fayan answered, "Like clouds and water, I flow with conditions." The guest master remarked, "The phrase clouds and water flow with conditions truly embodies the most carefree existence." Upon hearing this, Zen Master Fayan deeply resonated with the idea of complete freedom. Zen wisdom. In our busy everyday lives, we can still live like clouds and water, going with the flow and discovering the beauty of natural freedom and ease. 4. A preemptive strike. A student from Zen Master Dingzhou, a disciple of Shenshu from the Northern School, came to study under Zen Master Bird's Nest. Bird's Nest asked, "Is there any difference between Dingzhou's place and mine?" The student replied, "Not much difference." Bird's Nest, dissatisfied, displayed his great Zen ability, saying, "If there's not much difference, then don't stay here. Go back to where you came from." With that, he struck the student with a stick. The student responded, "If you are truly a master at using the stick, you should strike only those who deserve it. Even though it's a Zen stick, you can't hit people arbitrarily." Bird's Nest said, "Today I found someone worth hitting." He then struck the student 3 more times. After being hit, the student thought to himself, "So this is Bird's Nest's legendary endurance? The Zen stick, used incorrectly, cannot lead to enlightenment, so why strike at random?" As the student prepared to leave, Bird's Nest called out, "Even a blind stick needs someone willing to endure the blows." Hearing this, the student turned around and said, "Since the stick is in your hands, what choice do I have?" Bird's Nest replied, "If you think like that, then I will hit you again." The student approached, snatched the stick from Bird's Nest's hand, and struck him 3 times. Bird's Nest pretended to be frightened, saying, "Oh, the stick of shame, the stick of shame," meaning it was truly unfair. Truly unfair. The student retorted, "Even if it's a blind stick, you should still endure it." Finally, Bird's Nest said, "For such a talented individual, to hit you so carelessly is truly a mistake." The student bowed. Bird's Nest immediately shouted, "What calculation is this?" and hit him again. The student couldn't endure it and knelt down, saying, "Good hit, good hit." Truly, hitting someone close is a form of love, and scolding is a sign of affection. Under such strikes, the student finally attained enlightenment. Zen wisdom. We may not understand why Zen masters use the stick. They often communicate Zen teachings through the stick, not as a blind tool, but as a weapon of wisdom. The more the master hits, the more we appreciate their guidance. A well-placed strike earns respect, and a well-used stick brings enlightenment. In truth, hitting signifies closeness, and scolding signifies love. 5. A mind free from external objects. A monk from India, Master Tripitaka, believed he possessed supernatural powers and came before Zen Master Huizhong to demonstrate them. Huizhong, with humility and warmth, asked, "I've heard that you can read the minds of others. Is this true?" Master Tripitaka replied, "It's just a small trick." Huizhong then thought of something and asked, "Can you see where my mind is now?" Master Tripitaka, using his abilities, scanned the surroundings and answered, "Your mind is like a towering mountain, with rivers flowing beneath." Huizhong smiled and nodded, then shifted his thoughts and asked, "Now, where is my body?" Tripitaka once again scanned, this time laughing. How could a Zen master be playing with monkeys in the mountains? Huizhong, pleased, praised him. But then, he entered a deep state of meditation, clearing his mind of all thoughts, embodying the state of no self, no person, no world, and no movement or stillness. He then quietly asked, "Now where is this old monk?" Tripitaka used all his powers but saw only a clear sky without clouds, a still pond without the moon, a world without shadows, and a mirror without reflections. He searched high and low but couldn't detect Huizhong's mind. Exhausted, he admitted defeat. Huizhong slowly emerged from meditation, smiling, and said, "You can read the minds of others, marvelous." but you cannot find mine. Do you know why? Tripitaka was baffled. Zen Master Huizhong laughed, saying, because I had no thoughts. Without thoughts, how can you find anything? A true Zen practitioner withdraws both body and mind, generating no false thoughts. As false thoughts diminish, actions become righteous, and over time, compassion fills the heart. The strong become gentle, and the ignorant gain wisdom, almost like becoming a new person. With a pure mind, free from even a speck of dust, those who chant Buddha's name without false thoughts will achieve ultimate truth. Zen wisdom. No matter how deeply you hide your thoughts, as long as they exist, others can detect them. Only a mind free from external objects can remain invisible to others. 6. Boundless encounters with conditions. The Buddha had a disciple named Panthaka, who was rather slow-witted. Despite having 500 arhats teach him daily, he couldn't grasp anything. The Buddha called him over and taught him a simple verse. Guard the mouth, restrain the mind, let the body commit no transgressions. He who practices this will cross the sea of existence. The Buddha said, do not think this verse is too simple. If you can diligently learn this verse, it won't be easy. Zen, in essence, does not rely on written words. It depends entirely on grasping the inner meaning with the mind. Engaging in Zen practice requires determination and perseverance. Slowly, through the refinement of body and mind, the spirit naturally elevates. And when the conditions are right, enlightenment will naturally arise. The Zen tradition does not emphasize extensive learning. Instead, it teaches that all dharmas are one. Understanding one principle leads to understanding all things, similar to how within emptiness one can realize the true nature. Panthaka recited the verse repeatedly, and one day he finally comprehended its deeper meaning. Once, the Buddha sent Panthaka to teach the nearby monks and nuns. These monks and nuns, knowing of Panthaka's reputation for being slow, were not impressed. They secretly thought, can this dull person even teach? Outwardly, they still treated Panthaka with respect. Panthaka, humble and modest, said to them, I am naturally dull, but I learned a verse from the Buddha. I'll share it with you. As he recited the verse, the monks began to chuckle, thinking, this is just a basic verse we learned a long time ago. What could he teach us? However, Panthaka continued calmly, explaining the verse clearly and profoundly, revealing many new insights. From this seemingly simple verse, he unraveled limitless Zen principles. The monks and nuns were amazed and praised him. To understand such depth from a simple verse, he is indeed a remarkable person. From then on, they respected Panthaka deeply. Zen wisdom. Zen is a deep experience of the soul. Though the path may seem invisible and hard to cross, once enlightenment is reached, it reveals a true realm that moves the heart. Thus, learning is not about quantity, but practice. 7. The Buddha drinks water. Zen is the discovery of profound wisdom about the meaning of human life, the essence of enlightenment. If the soul is like a desert, Zen is like sweet spring water or a refreshing breeze, providing clarity and guiding the mind into the realm of freedom and transcendence. The Buddha and his attendant were traveling under the scorching sun. Around noon, the Buddha became very thirsty and said to his attendant, didn't we just pass by some small streams? Go fetch some water. The attendant took a jar and walked to the stream. But when he arrived, a merchant had just crossed the stream on horseback, stirring up the water and making it muddy. The attendant returned and said, the stream has been muddied by the merchant. The water is no longer drinkable. Perhaps we should find another stream ahead. I know of a clear stream about 2 hours away. The Buddha replied, we are near this stream, and I am very thirsty now. Why go 2 more hours? Go back and check again. Though displeased, the attendant took the jar and left, thinking, I've already been there. The water was dirty. How can it be drinkable now? Why is he sending me again? He decided to turn back halfway, saying to the Buddha, I told you already, the water is dirty. Why do you want me to waste time going again? The Buddha calmly responded, wait a bit, and you'll understand. Just follow my instructions. You won't waste your efforts. The attendant, seeing no other option, went back to the stream. To his surprise, the water had cleared and the sediment had settled. Zen wisdom. In Zen, nothing in this world is permanent. Patience is a process, and learning to wait patiently will help you achieve what you seek. 8. Not yet awakened. Mucho Daoming was a disciple of Zen master Huangbo Xian, a monk from the Tang dynasty who practiced Zen in the Longxing Temple in Mucho, modern-day Zhejiang. His teachings emphasize the higher path and directness. Before achieving enlightenment, Master Yunmen Wenyan sought out Zen master Mucho. When Mucho saw Wenyan approaching, he closed the door and refused to meet him. Wenyan knocked, and Mucho asked from inside, "Who's there?" Wenyan answered, "It is Wenyan." Mucho asked, "What do you want?" Wenyan replied, "I've been studying the true nature of Buddha for a long time but still don't understand. Please teach me." Mucho, being quite strange, opened the door and then immediately closed it again. This happened for 3 consecutive days. Wenyan knocked, Mucho opened the door and then quickly closed it. On the 4th day, Wenyan was prepared. As soon as Mucho opened the door, Wenyan stuck 1 foot inside. Seeing this, Mucho decisively grabbed Wenyan's collar and demanded, "Speak. Speak now." As Wenyan was about to respond, Mucho pushed him away, saying, "You haven't truly awakened. Like a decayed wooden stick, you are useless." He slammed the door on Wenyan's leg, causing an injury. At that moment, Wenyan suddenly attained great enlightenment. Zen master Mucho deliberately closed the door for 3 days to ignite Wenyan's determination, forcing him to seek a deeper understanding. Wenyan thrust his foot in the door as a sign of his commitment to awakening. Mucho, in turn, tested him to see if he had truly awakened. When Wenyan attempted to speak, Mucho knew he hadn't yet grasped the essence and pushed him out. Only after being injured did Wenyan attain true enlightenment. Zen wisdom. The first step in learning Zen is to examine your own mind. If you can feel it, your mind will become free. 9. Cake and Zen master Mucho asked his disciple Zhengjing, "Do you know how to teach the Yogacara doctrine?" Zhengjing replied, "I wouldn't dare claim that. I only read it when I was a child." Zen master Mucho then took a sweet cake, broke it into 2 pieces, and asked Zhengjing, "What is this?" Zhengjing remained silent. Zen master Mucho asked again, "Is it called a sweet cake, or is it not called a sweet cake?" Zhengjing replied, "It cannot be called a sweet cake." Zen master Mucho then called a young novice over and asked, "Come here, what do you call this?" The novice answered, "A sweet cake." Zen master Mucho laughed and said, "Well, you too can teach the Yogacara doctrine." Zen wisdom. A whole sweet cake is still a sweet cake when broken into 2 pieces. The principle is simple and obvious, even to those who haven't realized enlightenment, like Zhengjing. If you possess knowledge, why hide it or be ashamed to express it? 10. Zen and death. A young disciple, troubled by a question, asked Zen master Shenchuan Zengmi, "Master, I am ignorant and do not understand the matter of life and death. Please enlighten me." Zen master Zengmi replied, "Have you ever died before?" The disciple answered, "I have not died, nor do I know what death is. Please explain it to me." Zen master Zengmi said, "Since you have never died and do not know what death is, how can you understand the nature of life and death? Only by dying yourself can you resolve this doubt." The disciple then asked, "Have you died before, master?" Zen master Zengmi replied, "I too have never died, nor do I know the nature of life and death, so I cannot enlighten you on this matter. I have never doubted it, nor have I discussed it. If you follow my example, you will also be able to explain it." Zen wisdom. Life and death cannot be understood through words alone. To resolve such deep questions, one must experience them directly. 11. Zen verses. Zen verses are the chants or songs found in Buddhist scriptures. These verses serve as prophecies, guiding people on what to do after certain events occur. Verses have fascinated Zen practitioners throughout the ages, holding deep mysteries. One such legendary figure was Master Fu, 497 to 569, also known as Hong, from Yiqiaxia, Zhejiang. A unique Zen practitioner, he lived in the Yunhuang Mountains, where he planted 2 trees symbolizing the twin Sala trees under which Buddha Shakyamuni passed into nirvana. He called himself the future sage of good wisdom, and people referred to him as Master Fu, the sage of kind intent. He often taught his disciples through verses. Once, Master Fu recited the following verse to his disciples: "Every night I sleep with the Buddha. Every morning we rise together. Whoever is struck will accompany me. Whether in speech or silence, we dwell as one. Not separated by a hair, like body and shadow, we are inseparable. If you wish to know where the Buddha is, just listen to the sound of these words." The meaning is that in daily life, whether walking, standing, sitting, or lying down, we always follow the Buddha, just like a shadow follows the body. If you wish to know where the Buddha has gone, your mind must be pure. Master Fu also left behind another famous verse. Empty hands hold the plow, I walk while riding the water buffalo. People cross the bridge flows, but the water does not. Empty hands hold the plow refers to the body, which like a tool must be driven by the mind, just as a plowman drives the plow. I walk while riding the water buffalo symbolizes how the body moves under the guidance of the mind, similar to a person riding and urging the buffalo onward. People cross the bridge means that our physical form is like a bridge, and we, the people, are the true master. Just as we cross a bridge in life, our body is merely a passage. The bridge flows, but the water does not, suggests that while the body may age and change, our Buddha nature remains constant, unmoving. Just as a bridge may wear down over time, the water beneath it remains still and unwavering, symbolizing our true nature. Zen wisdom. In life, if we grasp today, tomorrow will follow. Every person has their own ideals. By constantly striving and transforming ourselves, we can become whole. 12. Zen teachings on gain and loss. There was a young man who was very talented in many areas, but his learning did not progress significantly. He sought guidance from a Zen master. The Zen master, after meeting him, said nothing but invited him to a meal. The table was filled with hundreds of different vegetarian dishes, most of which the young man had never seen before. At the beginning of the meal, the young man eagerly wanted to taste everything, and as a result, he overate. After the meal, the Zen master asked, "What did the dishes taste like?" The young man, rubbing his full stomach, struggled to respond, saying, "There were hundreds of flavors, hard to identify. I just ate to fill myself up." The Zen master asked again, "Did you feel satisfied and comfortable?" The young man replied, "I feel very uncomfortable." The Zen master smiled, but said nothing. The next day, the Zen master invited the young man to climb a mountain. As they ascended, the young man saw many rare and shiny stones. He was excited and started collecting them, putting them into his bag. Soon, the bag became too heavy to carry, but the young man couldn't bring himself to throw any stones away. At this point, the Zen master asked, "Shouldn't you discard some? How can you reach the top of the mountain if you carry all this weight?" The young man, gazing up at the peak, had a moment of realization. He immediately discarded the stones and felt light as he continued toward the summit. The young man later left the Zen master, and a few years later, he became a renowned scholar. Zen wisdom. To gain, one must first let go. In life, there are many things we need to release. Only by learning to let go can we live freely, achieve success, and reach the highest peaks of life. 13. The teaching of no words. A young monk asked Zen master Jiashan Shanhui, "Throughout history, the patriarchs have always left behind words to guide future generations. Why do you teach with no words?" Shanhui replied, "For 3 years I have not eaten any rice, yet I am not hungry." The monk said, "If you are not hungry, why haven't I attained enlightenment?" Shanhui said, "It's simply because you are confused and lost. Listen to this verse. Clear and bright, but no enlightenment. Enlightened, yet still confused. Stretching out my legs, I sleep peacefully. No falsehood and no truth." The monk asked, "The teachings of the 12 divisions of the Buddhist canon and the wisdom of the Western patriarchs show that they are enlightened. So why do you say there is no enlightenment and no confusion?" Shanhui said, "The teachings of the Western patriarchs are just the seat where this old monk sits. Why don't you ask about your own understanding instead of theirs?" The monk said, "I don't understand what my own understanding is. I only ask what method the Zen master uses to teach people." Shanhui said, "In the vast emptiness, there are no nails. Why insist on adding unnecessary embellishments?" The monk replied, "I don't understand." Shanhui said, "As I see it, the teachings of the Buddha, like the preaching at Vimalakirti's house, are all unnecessary. If you insist on asking for teachings, you are just adding legs to a snake." The monk finally attained enlightenment. Buddha Shakyamuni taught for 49 years and held more than 300 assemblies. Yet Buddha said, "I have never uttered a single word." This is not mere rhetoric, but the truth. Because truth, whether spoken or not, does not increase or decrease in value. 3 years without eating, yet no one is hungry. Zen wisdom. Zen transcends words, concepts, and intellectual understanding. What can be spoken is not true Zen. The path of words has ended is the principle taught by the patriarchs of Zen. 14. Worship as if the spirit is present. Zen master Yunju Daoying once visited Zen master Dongshan Lianja. Dongshan asked him, "Where have you come from?" Daoying replied, "I have come from Zen master Kuiwei." Dongshan asked again, "What does Zen master Kuiwei teach?" Daoying said, "Every year in the first month, Zen master Kuiwei holds a grand ceremony to honor the 16 arhats and 50 other arhats. Once I asked him, when you honor the arhats with such a grand ceremony, do they actually attend?" Zen master Kuiwei replied, "What do you eat every day?" I thought his answer was the essence of his teaching. After hearing this, Zen master Dongshan was amazed and asked, "Did Zen master Kuiwei really teach like that?" Daoying confirmed, "Yes, that was his teaching." Dongshan, excited, asked further, "What do you eat every day?" Without hesitation, Dongshan replied, "I eat rice all day long, but I have never eaten a single grain of rice. I drink tea all day, but I have never had a single drop of water." Daoying clapped his hands and said, "Master, every day you truly eat rice and drink water." Zen wisdom. Confucius once said, "Worship as if the spirit is truly present. Whether the spirit attends or not is one matter. From existence to non-existence, from birth and death to no birth and death, the question of liberation is already a step beyond." 15. The self is the Buddha. One day, Zen master Lingxun visited Zen master Guizong. Lingxun asked, "Master, what is Buddha?" Zen master Guizong hesitated, looking at Lingxun and said, "Hey, I can't explain it to you. Even if I tell you, you wouldn't believe me." Lingxun replied, "No, master. I'm asking sincerely. Why wouldn't I believe your words?" Guizong nodded and said, "All right, if you are sure you'll believe me, come closer and I'll tell you." He leaned in and whispered in Lingxun's ear, "You are the Buddha." Upon hearing this, Lingxun was initially stunned, but then he laughed out loud saying, "I am the Buddha. Haha, I am the Buddha." This koan teaches us that seeking the Dharma outside oneself is like riding a donkey to search for a donkey or looking for fish in a tree. In truth, everyone is born with Buddha nature. The Buddha is in the Lingshan spiritual mountain. Don't seek it far away. The Lingshan is within your heart. Don't forsake the spiritual mountain within you. Train the treasure of your nature by looking inward. Zen wisdom. Spiritual practice depends on oneself. Merely imitating or learning from others is like a parrot repeating words without understanding their true meaning. 16. Enlightenment cannot be imitated. Two monks lived together in a small hermitage, but they had not seen each other for a long time. One day, they met again. The monk from above said to the monk below, "We haven't seen each other in a long time. What have you been busy with?" The monk below replied, "I've been working on building a tower without any gaps." The monk above was excited and said, "I also want to build a tower without gaps. Can I borrow yours to take a look?" The monk below replied, "Unfortunately, I should have mentioned earlier, my tower without gaps has already been lent to someone else." The monk above confidently said, "That's all right, just let me see it once." The true nature of beings is the tower without gaps. Beyond the perfect nature of Dharma, there is no need for another gapless tower. The Dharma body of the Buddha is the entire nature of enlightenment, which the Buddha relies on for awakened understanding. The teachings of the Dharma body, as revealed in scriptures, are often referred to as relics of the Buddha's Dharma body. In the Diamond Sutra, it is written, "Wherever this sutra is found, all the devas, humans, and asuras should make offerings. Know that this place is a stupa." The monk below had realized the infinite Dharma body, thus understanding how to build a tower without gaps to honor the Dharma body. However, such enlightenment cannot be imitated. It is only attained through personal realization. Naturally, the monk below made an excuse that the tower had already been lent out. Zen wisdom. The Buddha does not need to be sought in the external world or pursued outside of one's mind, for the Buddha resides within the heart of every individual. One must turn inward and cultivate the treasure of the soul deep within. 17. Inside or outside the door. Zen Master Yunmen once visited Zen Master Mucho's temple, arriving just as the sun was setting. Yunmen knocked on the closed doors for a long time before Mucho came to open them. After Yumen explained why he had come, he was about to step inside when Mucho suddenly slammed the door shut. Yumen cried out, "Ouch! It hurts!" Zen Master Mucho asked, "Who is crying out in pain?" Yumen replied, "Master, it's me." Mucho then asked, "Where are you?" Yumen answered, "I'm outside the door." The Zen Master responded, "If you're outside, why are you crying in pain?" Yumen replied, "Because my foot is inside the door, and you shut it on my foot." The Zen Master asked, "If your foot is inside the door, why are you outside?" Yumen replied, "You've separated me into inside and outside." The Zen Master said, "You fool! How can one person be divided into inside and outside?" Yunmen's mind was suddenly struck as if by a bell, and the illusory distinction between body and mind shattered. At last, he attained great enlightenment. Though Zen Master Yunmen's foot was injured in the door, this opening and closing severed the endless stream of delusions, leading him to realize the truth of non-duality between inside and outside, the principle of equality. Zen wisdom. In the eyes of a Zen practitioner, all distinctions in the world, inside and outside, self and others, good and evil, large and small, are merely illusions. Ordinary people are trapped by these illusions and cannot transcend them. One must break free of these illusions, return to the source, unify the internal and external, transcend self and others, then enlightenment is inevitable. 18. To answer or not to answer. Zen Master Yunyuan Dansheng, a disciple of Master Yaoshan and teacher of Dongshan Liangzha, once said to his followers, "There is a person who can answer any question." Dongshan asked, "How many books does this person have?" Dansheng replied, "Not a single word." Dongshan asked, "Then how does he have so much knowledge?" Dansheng answered, "He doesn't sleep day or night." Dongshan asked, "Can I ask him something?" Dansheng replied, "His answer is not to answer." Dongshan asked, "If he has no question that cannot be answered, why does he not respond?" Dansheng said, "Because not answering is the true answer." Zen wisdom. The inquiries in Zen are the blossoming of the mind. They are not spelled out. The power of Zen lies in not speaking everything explicitly. 19. The subtlety of Zen. A man devoted to Buddhism did not understand what Zen was. He traveled far and wide, asking everyone, but no one could give him a satisfactory answer. Zen became like a knot in his heart that he couldn't untangle. One day he visited an ancient temple intending to worship Buddha. After entering the temple, a monk welcomed him. After worshipping, the man said he was searching for a highly enlightened Zen master to clarify the mystery of Zen for him. The monk kindly told him that this temple was a Zen temple and that he would be happy to answer any of his questions to help him untangle his heart. The man then asked, "What is Zen?" The Zen master replied, "Zen is everything." Unsatisfied, the man asked, "What is not Zen?" The master said, "Nothing is not Zen." Although the answer left the man slightly more enlightened, he still felt confused and asked, "How can one distinguish between what is Zen and what is not Zen?" The master replied, "When you believe it is Zen, it is Zen. When you don't believe it is Zen, then it is not Zen." Frustrated by the ambiguity of the Zen master's answers, the man thought the master was playing with him. However, not wanting to be rude, he quickly composed himself and asked, "Can Zen really be explained as simply as, I believe or I don't believe?" The Zen master, understanding the man's frustration, replied calmly, "When you neither believe nor disbelieve, how will you distinguish?" The subtlety of Zen lies in this play of ideas. It is not a matter of conditions or logic, but transcends cause and effect. It's like a child holding two candies and asking an adult how many candies they have. The adult might answer, either one or a pair, but the child could cleverly say, "I've already eaten half of one." At this point, we can't help but admire the brilliance of the Zen master's answer. It is subtle, yet profound. Zen wisdom. The words of Zen often seem unclear, but that is where the mystery lies. One must realize the answer for themselves, discovering clarity in the midst of confusion. The vast openness of understanding is Zen. 20. Answering what is not asked. Zen Master Linji and Zen Master Fenglin had a deep relationship. Once, Fenglin asked Linji, "I have a question to ask you. Will you answer it?" Linji replied, "Everyone knows that Fenglin is a great poet. I don't need to wound myself, but I am curious to hear your question." Fenglin asked, "The moon in the sea casts no shadow. The wandering fish swims alone in confusion." Linji responded, If the moon in the sea casts no shadow, how can the fish be confused? Thanglan continued, watching the waves rise in the wind, drifting with the water, even the sails float. Linji replied, the lone wheel reflects the tranquil landscape. A single cry pierces the autumn sky. Thanglan asked again, 3 inches of space between heaven and earth. A single word hits the mark. What do you say? Linji answered, when you meet a swordsman, show your sword, but don't recite poems to a non-poet. At this point, Thanglan had no more to say. Linji continued reciting, the Great Way has no fixed direction. Go east or west as you please. Neither flint sparks nor lightning can catch it. Later, when Zen Master Weishan read these lines, he asked Zen Master Yangshan, it moves so fast, even the spark from flint or the flash of lightning cannot match its speed. How could ancient masters teach people in this way? Yangshan asked, Master, what do you mean? Weishan replied, I just wanted to express it. There is no deeper meaning. Yangshan said, I don't believe that. Weishan asked, why not? Yangshan answered, all words are the Buddha's teachings. All teachings arise from the mind. As soon as the mind moves, it spreads throughout the 10 directions. Flint sparks and lightning are no match for the speed of thought. Weishan agreed. Indeed, the moon in the sea is wonderful. The fish swimming is wonderful. The wind and waves are wonderful. The boat is wonderful. The mountains and rivers are tranquil. The autumn sky is silent. Poets and swordsmen, heaven and earth, all meet in the mind. What does this have to do with confusion or speed? Zen wisdom. Zen practitioners often ask questions because they are filled with doubts about life, the Buddha's path, and the Zen mind. The answers, however, seem unrelated to the questions, but in truth, they are deeply connected, revealing an intricate unity. 21. The wisdom of self-care. Zen Master Ling Shun, after studying at Guizhong Monastery on Mount Lu for many years, one day expressed his intention to leave the mountain. He bid farewell to Zen Master Guizhong, who asked, where are you planning to go? Ling Shun honestly replied, I am returning to Lengzhong. With compassion, Zen Master Guizhong said, you have studied here for 13 years. Now that you are leaving, let me share with you some essential teachings of the Buddha Dharma. Once you've packed your belongings, come see me again. Ling Shun packed his things and placed them outside the door before going to meet Zen Master Guizhong. The master instructed, come closer to me. Ling Shun followed his instructions. Guizhong gently said, the weather is cold. Take care of yourself on your journey. At that moment, Ling Shun was suddenly enlightened. Leaving before fully completing one's studies in the Dharma is akin to abandoning one's responsibilities. The simple words of concern, the weather is cold, and the encouragement, take care on the road, eventually guided Ling Shun back to recognizing his true self. Zen wisdom. What is the essential Buddha Dharma that Zen Master Guizhong referred to? It is the heart of compassion, the Bodhi mind, and the mind of prajna. In a word, it is the Zen mind. 22. Zen beyond self and others. Zen Master Buddha Light noticed that Zen practitioner KGA remained silent all day and asked, you've been studying here for 12 years, but why have you never asked me about the way? KJ replied, the master is always very busy, so I did not dare to disturb you. Time passed, and 3 more years went by. One day, Buddha Light met KJ again on the road and asked, you have been practicing Zen and seeking the way, but why haven't you come to ask me anything? KJ answered, the master is always busy, so I dare not speak casually with you. Another year passed, and KJ came to Zen Master Buddha Light's room. Buddha Light invited him in, saying, today, I have time. Come to my Zen chamber, and we will talk about the way. KJ clasped his hands in reverence and said, Master, you are very busy. How could I waste your time? Buddha Light realized that KJ was too humble, unwilling to confront reality directly, and that without active engagement, he would never attain enlightenment. Buddha Light raised his voice and exclaimed, busy. Busy. I am busy being a person, yet you don't know why I am busy. Upon hearing this, KJ attained enlightenment. The essence of Zen lies in confronting reality directly. When eating, just eat. When practicing, just practice. Ask questions with full attention and answer with certainty. One cannot be vague or indecisive. If help is available, why not seek it? How can there be such a sharp distinction between self and others? Zen wisdom. Some people are too selfish, constantly seeking help for trivial matters, while others are overly reserved, refusing to stand up for themselves, and thus miss many opportunities. 23. The Sixth Patriarch's teachings on Zen. Zen Master Shen Hui once visited the Sixth Patriarch. The Sixth Patriarch asked, "Where have you come from?" Shen Hui answered, "I haven't come from anywhere." The Sixth Patriarch asked, "Then why don't you go?" Shen Hui replied, "If there is no coming, how can there be going?" The Sixth Patriarch asked, "Have you brought your life with you?" Shen Hui answered, "Yes, I have brought it with me." The Sixth Patriarch asked, "Since you have brought your life with you, surely you know the true essence of your life?" Shen Hui replied, "Only the physical body comes and goes, but the soul does not move back and forth." The Sixth Patriarch picked up a Zen stick and struck him. Shen Hui did not flinch and instead asked in a loud voice, "When the master sits in Zen, does he see or not see?" The Sixth Patriarch struck him 3 more times before saying, "Did you feel pain from the blows?" Shen Hui replied, "I felt the pain and yet did not feel it." The Sixth Patriarch asked, "What meaning is there in feeling or not feeling pain?" Shen Hui responded, "Only ordinary people feel resentment from pain, while wood and stone feel nothing." "Exactly," replied the Sixth Patriarch. "Life must transcend all worldly concepts and discard all illusions and desires. Whether you see or don't see, what does it matter? Pain or no pain, so what? If you cannot abandon the bondage of the physical body, how can you grasp the true essence of life?" The Sixth Patriarch continued, "You ask for the way because you do not know it. If you knew, why would you ask? The essence of your life can only be seen by you. You are lost, and that's why you've come here to ask me if I can see your life. But life must be grasped by oneself. Why ask me if I can see it?" Shen Hui quietly bowed in reverence. Zen wisdom. Pure intention, clear mind. To cultivate oneself, one must first rectify the mind. To rectify the mind, one must first have sincere intent. And to have sincere intent, one must first pursue true knowledge, beginning with understanding the nature of things. 24. Who is the Zen Master? Zen Master Buddha Light, in his daily practice of Zen, often forgot himself. There were many Zen practitioners from various places who came to seek his teachings. When his attendant informed him, "There are students from afar wishing to meet the Master to ask about Zen," Zen Master Buddha Light would naturally respond, "Who is the Zen Master?" On other occasions, while he was eating, the attendant would ask, "Master, have you finished eating?" Zen Master Buddha Light would similarly ask, "Who is eating?" One time, the Master was working in the fields, weeding from morning until evening without a break. Those in the temple saw him and asked, "Master, you've worked so hard." Buddha Light respectfully replied, "Who is working hard? Who is working hard? Who is eating? Who is walking by? Who is speaking?" Zen Master Buddha Light often responded this way, always forgetting himself while addressing others. Who is the Zen Master? In reality, it was he himself who was the Zen Master. Many Zen practitioners and students, through Buddha Light's words, found their true selves and realized who they really were. Zen wisdom. The quiet words and actions of a Zen practitioner contain profound meaning. Like our own lives, we should not let external appearances weigh us down. Continue walking your true path, firmly grounded in reality. 25. The true I. Zen Master Daowu once asked Zen Master Yunyuan, "The Bodhisattva Guanyin has 1,000 eyes and 1,000 hands. Which of those eyes is the true I?" Zen Master Yunyuan answered, "It is like when you are sleeping at night and your pillow falls to the ground. Without opening your eyes, you reach out and pick it up. Which eye did you use to find it?" After hearing this, Zen Master Daowu said, "Ah, I understand now." Yunyuan asked, "What do you understand?" Daowu replied, "The whole body is the I." Yunyuan laughed and said, "You only understand 80%. Daowu, puzzled, asked, "Then how should it be said?" Yunyuan responded, "The entire body is the I." The story of Guanyin with 1,000 eyes and 1,000 hands is one of the most beautiful myths in Chinese Buddhism. Guanyin is a symbol of compassion, offering salvation to all beings. The meaning behind 1,000 eyes and 1,000 hands is to enhance the allure of this compassionate figure, to make people forever yearn for her, seek her care, and find refuge in her endless gaze and boundless compassion. Thus, the whole body is the I refers to a perception based on differentiation. while the entire body is the eye, signifies the manifestation of wisdom and innate understanding without differentiation. We each possess a true mind, an eye that sees through all things. Why not use it to illuminate the entire universe? Zen wisdom. Zen is a practice of observing being and nature, organizing human thoughts in such a way that our minds can dwell in an eternal and unfathomable state of peace. 26. Deliverance for a dog. Two monks were practicing Zen together. One day, Monk A found a dog that had died and brought it back, saying to Monk B, "I'll go and fetch some milk for it to drink." After a short while, Monk B realized the dog was dead and began chanting prayers to deliver the dog's spirit. When Monk A returned with the milk, he said, "The scriptures are too profound for it to understand. Let me handle it." He placed the milk before the dog and said, "You've suffered so much in this life. Drink this milk so that in your next life, you can drink milk every day." Deliverance complete. Monk B, standing nearby, suddenly attained enlightenment, thinking, Zen is so simple and natural, filled with love and compassion. Zen penetrates the true meaning of life, overflowing with happiness and peace. It allows individuals to merge their hearts with the universe, living freely and harmoniously. Each of us has the power to create happiness and peace, to love all beings and to be compassionate toward each other. Zen teaches us to become more focused and mindful in our love and work, with more compassion and kindness toward all things. Zen wisdom. Zen cultivates our hearts and blesses others. Zen is simple and natural, following the nature of things. The life of Zen is pure, peaceful, and equal. As long as you have heart and feeling, intention, and love, you can reach the perfect state of living among all things, with your heart above all things. 27. 1 and 3 Zen Master Xuanxia Shibe once said to Zen Master Shuifeng Yikun, "Do you have a staff? I'll provide you with one." Shuifeng replied confidently, "I already have 3 staffs, you can take one." Xuanxia, surprised, asked, "Each person usually has just one. How do you have 3? Shuifeng explained, 3 staffs serve 3 purposes. Xuanxia disagreed and said, "Right is right, I don't use it that way." Shuifeng then asked, "What do you use it for?" Xuanxia answered, 3 is 1. Shuifeng did not agree, saying, 3 is 3, 1 is 1. 3 is 1 and 1 is 3. Like a piece of land where many people farm, everyone relies on it to live. 1 is 3. How can you just say 3 is 1? Xuanxia asked, "On what basis do you say it's one piece of land?" Shuifeng drew a line in the air and said, "Look, this is one piece of land." Xuanxia replied, "Right is right, I won't say that." Shuifeng then asked, "Why won't you say so?" Xuanxia responded, "That's your business. You live your life, you eat your food, you are the one who's full." Shuifeng then asked, "Since everyone is like that, why borrow someone else's staff instead of using your own?" At this point, Xuanxia recited a verse. Bodhidharma didn't come to the east. The second patriarch didn't go to the west. When it's time to come, one comes. When it's time to go, one goes. Don't use another's staff to help yourself. Don't burden others with your 3 staffs. Zen wisdom. The Zen staff symbolizes the pure nature we all inherently possess. It cannot be said to exist, nor can it be said not to exist. You can't say it's 1, so how can you say it's 3? No one can take from you what is yours, and no one can give you what is not yours. In the interactions between Zen masters, it's about one coming and one going, not about dividing things into 2 or 3. 28. Do not transmit through text. Prime Minister Bui Hu of the Tang dynasty was a layman studying Zen. He wrote down his insights on Zen practice and compiled them into a book. After completing the book, he respectfully presented it to Zen Master Huangbo, hoping the master would offer his thoughts on the content. Zen Master Huangbo, upon receiving the book, didn't bother to read it and simply placed it on the table. After some time, he asked Prime Minister Bui Hu, "Do you understand the meaning of this?" Bui Hu replied honestly, "I don't understand." Zen Master Huangbo explained, Zen does not rely on written words. By expressing the Dharma through black ink on white paper, you are stifling the true meaning of the Buddha's teachings. This distorts the essence of Zen, which is why I did not read it. Upon hearing this, Bui Hu became even more enlightened in Zen and wrote a verse of praise. Since the great sage transmitted the seal of the mind, I now carry a body like a perfect jade vessel. For 10 years I washed my mind with pure water. Today I crossed the river to awaken Chengtian. 8,000 dragons march along your path. Countless flowers of virtue bloom around you. I wish to serve you as a student, but how do I know who holds the true Dharma? Zen Master Huangbo read the verse but did not comment, saying only, "The mind is vast like the great sea. The lotus nourishes the sick body. In my garden 2 idle trees grow. I've never taken in leisurely people." Zen Master Huangbo was one of the most straightforward and upright figures in Chinese Zen history. He, along with the Zen Master Linji, became founders of what is known as the Fiery Zen. At the age of 65, while at Longxing Temple in Jiangxi, Buhu recorded his teachings in the book Essentials of Dharma Transmission. By the time Huangbo was 72, he had moved to Kaiyuan Temple in Henan, where Buhu compiled his teachings into the second volume of the same book. Despite this, Huangbo never bothered to read the records, demonstrating a rare form of Zen discipline. Zen wisdom. Zen is not written down, it communicates with life in the simplest way. Simplicity is a vast wisdom, clear, swift, and profound. 29. Realizing the essence of the mind. Zen Master Guanghui Yuanlian, when first studying the way under Zen Master Zhenjue, would handle kitchen duties during the day and study and recite scriptures at night. One day, Zen Master Zhenjue asked him, "What scripture are you reading?" Yuanlian replied, "The Vimalakirti Sutra." Zhenjue asked, "The sutra is here, but where is Vimalakirti?" Yuanlian, unsure of how to respond, felt deeply embarrassed by his limited understanding. He asked Zhenjue, "Where is Vimalakirti, Master?" Zhenjue replied, "Whether I know or not doesn't matter, but I can't tell you." Feeling even more ashamed, Yuanlian left Zen Master Zhenjue and set off on a pilgrimage, gaining wisdom from 50 teachers along the way, but still unable to attain enlightenment. One day he visited Zen Master Shushan Jingnian in Hana and asked, "When a practitioner reaches the treasure mountain and returns empty-handed, what does that mean?" Shushan replied, "You return with the treasures of your own home." Yuanlian immediately became enlightened and said, "I no longer doubt the words of the Zen masters." Shushan asked, "Why is that?" Yuanlian responded, "Because I have a tongue of my own." Shushan joyfully said, "You have realized the essence of Zen." Zen wisdom. Everyone has a tongue, but few understand its true power. The tongue can uplift a nation or lead it to ruin. Some create merit with their tongue, while others cause harm. Do we fully understand the wisdom of a Zen master's words? Zen Master Dogen from Japan, who lost his father at age 3 and his mother at 8, was raised by his uncle and ordained as a monk at 14. During the Song dynasty, he traveled to China to study the Dharma. While in Qingyuan, he encountered an elderly Zen master named Yuting, who was responsible for cooking at Aiyuan Temple in Zhejiang. Dogen politely invited him to stay on the ship for the night, but the old master declined, explaining he needed to buy wood ear mushrooms to prepare for the next day's meal at the temple. Dogen remarked, "Surely someone else at the temple could take your place." Yuting replied, "No, I've only just been given this duty at my old age, and I cannot easily hand it over to someone else. Besides, I haven't been granted permission to stay out overnight, and I cannot break the temple's rules." Dogen asked, "You are a senior monk, why take on such kitchen duties instead of sitting in meditation and studying sutras?" The old master laughed and said, "Young foreign monk, you don't yet understand what true practice is. Don't be surprised. Clearly, you don't know the mind of Zen or the meaning of the scriptures." Feeling ashamed, Dogen asked, "What is the mind of Zen? What is the meaning of the scriptures?" Without hesitation, the old master replied, 1345. Dogen asked again, "What is the practice?" Yuting responded, 678910. Dogen, through this encounter, learned that even the most unassuming places in the Zen world of China were filled with hidden masters. The simplicity and profound depth of the old master's words were unforgettable. Later, Dogen became the founder of the Soto Zen school in Japan, and one of his most important works was Shobogenzo, Treasury of the True Dharma I. Zen wisdom. What is the mind of Zen? What is practice? The old master's response of 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 is not meant to convey something tangible, but to point to the all-encompassing nature of Zen. Even 2 3 4 5 cannot fully capture the essence of the mind of Zen and the meaning of the scriptures. 30. Dongshan's question on Zen Master Dongshan visited Zen Master Longshan, and Longshan asked, "You shouldn't walk the mountain paths. Where have you come from?" Dongshan replied, "There is no path in the mountain, and how I got here is not important. But may I ask, where did you come from?" Longshan answered, "I didn't fall from the sky, nor did I crawl out of the earth." Dongshan asked, "How many years have you been in this mountain?" Longshan replied, "There are no calendars in the mountains, and the passing of years has nothing to do with me." Dongshan asked, "So were you here before the mountain existed?" Longshan said, "I don't know." Dongshan, confused, asked, "Why don't you know?" Longshan replied, "I'm neither a mortal nor a celestial being, so how could I know?" Dongshan asked, "If you are neither human nor a god, could it be that you have become a Buddha?" Longshan said, "Not a Buddha either." Dongshan asked, "Then what are you?" Longshan said, "To call me something would be incorrect." Finally, Dongshan posed his primary question, "For what reason do you live in such a deep mountain?" Longshan replied, "Long ago I saw two oxen fighting, and they both tumbled into the sea. Since then I've never seen them again." Upon hearing this, Dongshan bowed in reverence to Zen Master Longshan. Zen wisdom. Zen questions are often indirect and seemingly unrelated, but the profound insight lies beyond the surface of the words. Longshan's story of the oxen is a metaphor for the disappearance of dualities and conceptual distinctions, leading to the realization of the true nature of things.